in. Okay, I think everyone is in. For the sake of brevity, I will start today's presentation, which is how to get customers without product market fit. So, as I jump in, the goal of this workshop is to help two types of people, right? Firstly, those of you who are about to go to market, you haven't started selling yet, but you're getting close to. And then the second type of person that this workshop is for is those of you who are actively in the market right now, trying to sell, but you want better results. Before I move through this, just to get a read of the room, guys, can you maybe put in the chat which category maybe resonates with you most? Is it one or two? Because if I have a sense of this, I'll shape the presentation more to that category. Okay, Abhishek is saying two. Emmett two. Lucas two. Okay, cool. I'll try to shape this more so to you guys. Naomi too as well. And Naomi, I know you sent in a question beforehand, so I'll be able to deal with that later in the presentation. Okay, perfect. So what we will cover, there's kind of 5 key areas that I want to go through with you. Selling, when it's done right, is a combination of 1, getting the science right, i.e. the process, and 2, about mastering your emotions. When people pose a question, is selling an art or science? Really, it's a combination of both, and you need to have an understanding of both to be able to be effective in getting customers. So with that in mind, I'm going to cover maybe the 3 beliefs that I hear most from my clients that's preventing them from getting more sales. Then the second area I'm going to touch on is the number 1 reason why certain companies are able to scale to 7 figures and some are not. I know that's a bold title, but I've worked with companies that have done billions in dollars in revenue. I've worked with companies who've done 8 figures and 7 figures, and there's a pattern throughout, right? The third area I'll cover is how to close more deals faster with the 3D framework. Is everyone here in the B2B space? If you're not, just say in the chat that you're B2C. But if you are B2B, most of what I'm going to go through will be on that area, and particularly some techniques that you can do to shorten your sales cycle and increase your win rate. Okay, thanks, Lucas. Your sales score, I'll touch on this in the mid part of the presentation. This is something that I will give you guys to understand maybe some issues in your own sales process, and how to maybe uncover some of those bottlenecks with some suggestions of what to do about it. So I have a tool that you can use for that. And then the last part is, thanks, Mary, B2B, why leverage matters in sales and how you can use it to scale. So this will be at the point where when we have our foundations right, we need to then consider how are we going to evolve from founder-led sales. So the part of the presentation that will help you out in that area. So why listen to me? So I've had the fortune of working with companies like Twitter, Time Doctor, and LifeFlow over the last 7 years. I've helped them drive over $2 million in sales. I've booked 700 meetings in the process, and I've probably made about 10,000 cold calls to achieve those figures. However, it wasn't always that way. So if you're a founder listening to this presentation, I was in your shoes 10 years ago. This was me without a beard, looking a lot younger in my first business, and I probably made all the mistakes that any person can make when they're first setting up a business trying to get sales. I went to business in university thinking it would help help me set up a business. It didn't. I went through an entrepreneurial accelerator program that I thought would help me grow my business and get more sales. It didn't. I got really good at creating business plans, making presentations. And I honestly thought this was sales. So the picture you're looking at is of me speaking to a local radio station to try to get new business. And unfortunately, or fortunately, crying face, I had no sales. So I was very fortunate to get that lesson early on in my career, but it really drove me to figure out, how does this client acquisition thing work? Like, what are companies actually doing to get new customers in the door? This, plus I was very fortunate at the same time, just before I set up my first business, I had the pleasure of meeting this person that you see before you. Is anyone here familiar with Dragon's Den? Just maybe a thumbs in the chat. If you're from the US, maybe you're familiar more so with Shark Tank. But this person you see in front of you, his name is Sean Gallagher, and he was one of the investors on Dragon's Den in Ireland, where I'm from. And I asked him, I said, Sean, what is the reason that business has failed? So this is a successful businessman. Ultimately, actually, he went to try to become the president of Ireland. He nearly won it, but he didn't. But the question I asked him is, like, why do businesses fail? And I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, Alan, all you need to remember is businesses fail because of a lack of sales. So that insight, when I went into my first business, hit me like a ton of bricks, because while I understood it, what he was saying logically, it wasn't until I set up my first business and I was struggling to get sales that it really started to make sense. Now, if you're in the startup phase, like, who here, because I know a few people who are on this call, who here has set up a new business in the last 6 months, a new startup? Just like to see this in the chat. So if you're still in the startup phase, I'm sure you're probably familiar with this chart from CB Insights of the top reasons why startup fails. And you'll see the two areas that rank kind of way more so than everything else. And it's one, startups fail because they run out of cash, and then two is because there's no market need. And so what is the commonality here? If you're running out of cash, how can you try to mitigate that risk? Sales. If you don't have a market need, how can you mitigate against this? By speaking with more people. And what I've found working with a lot of early stage founders, and they come to the realization that there is no market need, really they haven't actually tested thoroughly. Like, they've spent 12 months, 18 months building a product that no one wants because they're speaking to no one. Who here can resonate with that? Because that's what I did with my first business, right? So to be able to really validate if there's a market need for what you're doing, you need to get good at reaching out to people. And that's early stage sales. Now, to, I guess, the big question, right? Why are some of these companies able to scale to 7 figures and some are not? Like, why is Time Doctor able to do 21 million annual recurring revenue? Why was the startup that I was ahead of sales of, why were we able to hit 7 figures? Well, amongst all the, particularly the tech companies I've worked with, there's a pattern that when they get this right, they're able to generate sales consistently. And this acronym stands for AMPS, right? When a business has AMPS in their business, they can predictably and consistently deliver sales. So what does this mean? So AMPS is a 4-step sales process that begins with ABM, which leads to meetings, which leads to presentations, which leads to sales, right? So what is ABM? So when I first started working with Twitter, and you might be surprised by this, the first job I was given an Excel spreadsheet of 1,000 companies with 1,000 contacts. And my job was, Alan, you need to get meetings with these companies, and you need to bring them on as a customer, right? And the strategy is to fill the top of your funnel with potential prospects so that you can try to get a meeting with them. Then you can try to bring them on a presentation or a demo, and then ultimately close a deal and get a sale. It's the first part in particular that I see a lot of early stage companies struggle with. Why? There's many reasons. I think there's two big ones for me. One is the aversion to selling because they prefer to do everything else but it. And two is the fact they just want to work on the product. And then it becomes too late. It's 18 months in, 2 years in, and you have no sales, right? So firstly, why ABM? And before I get into this, has anyone here ever heard of ABM as it relates to sales? It's okay if you haven't. It's not a trick question, but this is, yeah, that's it, Lucas. It's account-based marketing. And in B2B, this is what all these organizations do, and this is what the highest performing sales team concentrate on. And generally what ABM stands for, it's account-based marketing, and it's a sequence of activities to try to get in front of your potential customer. Now, for the sake of this presentation, this is just an example image, but maybe to give you something to take away at the end of this call, generally the best performing sales sequences that I've seen, they involve 7 or 8 touch points. One is a call, one is an email, one is a LinkedIn message, maybe one is a voicemail. Then if you want to be very creative, you might actually send what's called a lumpy mail. So it's like a handwritten letter with little Rubik's Cube or something that's going to stand out so that you can try to get the attention of the prospect that you want to speak with. So this is the strategy to use to fill the top of the funnel. So how can you implement? I'm going to break this down step by step so that you guys at the end of this call, you can take this, run with it, and execute. So step 1, it's called identify your dream 100 customers. So generally when I'm working with founders, the reason they reach out is 1, some of the leads they have are not converting, or 2, they have a desert-like pipeline. They have no one to speak to. And generally the reason behind that challenge is because they're not doing the sufficient activity to be able to generate those meetings. So what I would encourage everyone to work on is to figure out, okay, who's the vertical you're going after and who's the specific 100 customers that you want to contact. When you have clarity around this, trust me, your sales efforts will become a lot easier. So focus on 100 customers that you want to connect with. Step 2, get their contact details. Step 3, develop their messaging. Now, this part here, I'd encourage you, if you're going to utilize ABM to get these meetings, I would encourage you to split test your outreach efforts. What I see happening time and time again is someone tries a strategy like this and they blast them with an email sequence campaign on Apollo, and they haven't actually split tested. I was speaking with a founder of a cybersecurity firm a couple of days ago. He had built a sales team of 4 people. They sent 35,000 emails and they didn't get one meeting. And the reason being is 1, their approach was terrible and they didn't iterate along the way. So when you are doing your split test it, particularly the first message, maybe have 2 or 3 different variations. So then you can see what is getting responses, what isn't getting a response. When you figure out what gets a response, double down on that. 4, set up touch points. So this is what I was talking about when I was showing you the graph, the ABM graph. Sometimes, particularly if you're trying to target C-suite executives, CEOs, CFOs, you have to consider the fact these people are extremely busy. Their inboxes are swamped. So there's a good chance they're not even going to see your message. And if that's the case, we have to utilize other channels to get in front of them. One of them is LinkedIn. One of them is through a cold call. I know there's probably a few people in here who when you say the term cold call, it gives you shivers down your spine. I was one of those people. And ultimately, I didn't pick up on the phone in my first business because I had a fear of rejection. That's a story for another day of how I overcame that. So set up your touch points and press send. The main point I'd want to get through to you to ensure the strategy works is you need to be committed to it. Like, you can't send a few messages and not get a response and then say it doesn't work. In B2B in particular, you may have to consistently outreach to a set of companies over a 3 to 6 month period. This stuff takes time, but the hardest part here is actually getting clear on who you're going to target. So I'd encourage you to spend some time on that. Now, in terms of the beliefs, right? So the way I've maybe map this out, you can kind of say, yeah, that logically makes sense. And at the end of this call, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to try this to try, maybe get some meetings, get some customers. However, there's one particular belief that even when I explain this to founders logically, that eventually they will not do it. And the reason being is they get caught in this narrative in their head of, if you build it, they will come. Like, you can see in the image here, someone obviously was attempting to build a birdhouse and they attracted a cat, right? It didn't work. So you can't, I'm telling you, if you have that mindset of your product is so great, people will just automatically come, you're destined for failure. There's a reason the companies I've worked with spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars investing in sales teams and sales training, even when they have a great product, right? So what does this look like? What does good outreach actually look like? And how can you map this out? Well, maybe at the end of this call or after this call, I have a video on YouTube. I call it a curves framework, how to structure a message to get a response. The key thing to be cognizant of when you're doing cold outreach like this, spend time in 1, personalizing your message, and 2, making it extremely relevant to the person you're sending it to. Now, the example I've showed you here, I sent this message at 4:02 p.m. to a CEO, right? Notoriously difficult persona to get in front of. 4:02, 4:05, I got a response like that. So the point being is, if you're just willing to put in a bit of effort of like actually understanding who you're doing outreach to, what challenges are they facing? How can your solution fit into what their objectives are? You will get a response. Because generally, if you're reaching out to a CEO, they have two objectives that they need to achieve. 1, we need to make the company more profitable. 2, we need to save on expenses. Oh yeah, just saw your comment, Naomi. Actually shows that you should. Yeah, and you need to do the work. You need to do the work, and you need to put thought into how you're going to position yourself when you're reaching out to these companies. Right? Here's another example of a LinkedIn message I sent at 3:22 p.m. and 20 minutes later I got this response. Feel free to send your information directly to the point of contact. So the reason I'm showing you this is initially when I start working with founders, particularly if you're a founder with, say, you're mostly a technical background, most of the technical founders I've worked with, most of the pushback I get is around outreach, and they don't believe it works. So I actually have to show them this is how it works when it's done right. The reason why sales might get a bad rap, sales gets a bad rap when people do it the wrong way. And I'll illustrate this in a second. So again, if you want to get more meetings, which will lead to presentations, which will lead to sales, focus on these 4 steps in your sales process. So now to the next part, presentations and sales. How do we get over this? What should we say? What framework should we be thinking about? So in terms of beliefs, when people get the meeting, one of the things, and I'm not going to lie as well. When I first started selling, I probably felt like this as well. This notion of I don't want to push a product on someone. I want to set up a call with someone. We'll have a nice conversation. I'll tell them about the product, and for some reason, then I get completely ghosted. I don't hear from them for a month, 2 months. Really, I'm never going to hear from them again. And it's around this term, I hear founders say this to me all the time. How can I sell without being salesy? So as you can see here, this gentleman in the suit trying to sell pots and pans to the door. The other, I guess, example that people have in their head of a salesperson is something from the Wolf of Wall Street, or a car salesman trying to push a product around you. They're all examples of sales done the wrong way. When you have two things, right? When you have a product that you believe genuinely helps someone, it is your duty to get that product in front of your potential customer. And it's not a case of pushing the product into someone. There's a whole process around how you frame a conversation. So really, you're qualifying them as much as they're qualifying you. And so this framework looks like, right, so think of it in terms of 3Ds. You want to discover. This is the first part. Your first call isn't about trying to ram your product down whoever's throat you're speaking with. Your first call is to figure out, could they be a potential fit between what you have and the challenges that they're currently facing. And that's what sales really is. It's about finding out problems. If you can help people with the problem, with your product, then you have the opportunity to have that demo conversation, to maybe show them a solution that will help them. If your solution will not help them, you're only wasting your time and you're wasting their time. And this is why sales gets a bad connotation. It's when people are selling products to people who don't need it. But if you have a product that you know someone will benefit from, it is your duty to, one, ask the right questions through this discovery process, two, then demonstrate what you've created and how it could help them. And then the last part is, how do you actually do the deal, right? So I know Naomi messaged me before this workshop, and you'd asked, when you're in the B2B sales process and you're dealing with multiple decision makers, like, how the hell do you navigate through that situation? Well, you do it with the sales framework. And one of the most potent sales frameworks you can use, and by the way, so the sales framework is called MEDDIC. Has anyone heard, actually, who here hasn't heard of MEDDIC and it's your first time hearing about the sales framework? I'd be curious to know. Okay, Lucas. And Naomi. And so B2B sales can get extremely challenging when, I think Lucas raised your hand. I'll take questions at the end of the workshop, Lucas. So just hold on to that, and I'll jump back to you on it. So one of the challenges I hear from founders is, my sales cycle is 12 months long. My sales cycle is 9 months long. My sales cycle is 6 months long. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they're not closing. And the reason you're not able to navigate the buying process of your prospect is, one of the main reasons is due to the fact that you're not speaking to the appropriate decision makers. And so what actual effective B2B selling becomes over time, it becomes a consultative process as well as a project management process. So through a sales framework like MEDDIC, you will be able to implement this. You should implement this structure on your sales call, where you're asking questions of, like, let's say you're speaking with someone called John, and he is the head of sales. It's like, okay, John, based on what you said to me, it sounds like your challenges are X, Y, and Z. It sounds like I might be able to help you with that challenge moving forward. But I'm just curious, for a tool like this, generally, who else needs to be involved in the decision-making process? You say a line like that, then he'll say something like, yeah, I need to pass this with my legal team. But generally, that's still not enough. You need to be able to dig more. So when someone like that says, okay, yeah, we just put it through their legal team, then you ask another follow-up questions to the tune of, okay, legal team, who else? and you keep asking who else until you have all the decision makers that need to be a part of this deal mentioned. That will allow you to navigate this process, and then as a result of that, this will enable you to shorten your sales cycle. There's more tactics and strategies around that to be able to do it, but for the sake of brevity and the time we have today, that's all I'll go through in terms of method. So research it after the call as a way to bring down the sales cycle of the people that you're trying to ultimately bring on as customers. So, and here's another thing, right? So if you thought sales was just jumping on a call and pitching your product, then you're wrong. Look, the best teams I've worked with, they have a sophisticated step-by-step process of what to say with a potential buyer from the first call till the last call. And like, here's an example of a framework that sales teams use, and particularly like sales manager, this is my last role. If our sales were down, if our close rate was down, I'd need to be able to discuss it with the sales rep to try to figure out where in our process are we not achieving our objective. And then I would go back, review sales calls, and find out, okay, you didn't do this part, you didn't do this part. And because you didn't do this part, this has added another 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to our sales cycle. So this is the depth, I guess, of preparation that some of the best salespeople I've worked with, they look at before they go on their calls. Think of it like a roadmap. This is ultimately what you want. Any conversation you're having, you want to understand where someone is right now, and you want to be able to guide them to where you can help them, right? And ultimately, that's to bring them on as a customer. So, where can you improve? So, on my website, aptsalesconsulting.com, I have created this tool that there's a series of, I think it's a 24, 25 questions that if you answer it, it will give you feedback on your sales process in terms of 3 areas. 1, your, I guess, ability to get customers. 2, your ability to close customers. And 3, your sales process and sales strategy. It will also give you some feedback, direct feedback of how you can improve your sales process. I probably spent about a month developing it. When AI came out a few months ago, I was able to create this tool. So for the purpose of time today, I'm not going to go in it in too much detail, but maybe after this workshop, go onto the website, click Discover Your Sales Score, and it will give you insights in your own sales process of where you can improve. Okay. And then the last belief, right? So let's say you get over those 2 first hurdles. You're like, okay, Alan, I logically understand the sales process. Emotionally, I understand that I need to follow this process, and I'm not going to take it personal when maybe people don't want to work with me. That's fine. We have the logic, we have the emotion. No, a lot of the founders I work with, as I said, they come from a technical background, and ultimately they want to start spending their time again on doing things they love, like creating new features, creating product. And so one of the pushbacks I get quite a lot is, do I have to sell for the rest of my life? And as you can see in the image here, you know, who says sales is stressful? I'm 27 and I feel just fine. So sales can be stressful if, let's say, you're a technical founder and you don't want to be doing this all your life. What I would say is, if you're a CEO, if you're a founder, it is your duty. You need to get the foundations right of your business before you could even consider building a team and outsourcing. Once you have that nailed, that's when you can start looking to build a team. So how would you evolve from founder-led sales? You build a team, right? So this is the typical structure you'll be looking at. I'm curious, has anyone on the call here hired salespeople? Has anyone ever hired a salesperson before? Okay, I'll take that as a no, and that's probably a good thing, because I see a lot of people making mistakes when they're building a sales team. One of the main mistakes is that they just hire one salesperson. If there's another maybe piece of advice that I really want you to take away from today's workshop is never hire one salesperson. You need to hire two, right? And the reason for this is if you just hire one, you have no real benchmarks to compare their performance. So one, it's on a competition comparison level, so you can really understand who is performing and who isn't. The other reason is salespeople do churn. So let's say you spend 30, 60 days trying to hire a salesperson, you bring them on board, you train them for 2 or 3 weeks, then at the end of the month, they decide that they're going to leave. So you need to go and do this recruiting, interviewing, and hiring all again. And it's an absolute nightmare, right? I don't know so I know, Naomi, you mentioned you're in B2B SaaS. Is there anyone else here in SaaS in particular? The reason I'm bringing this up is there's a guy called Jason Lemkin, right? Oh, Abhishek, you're in SaaS as well. If you're in SaaS, there's a guy called Jason Lemkin. He runs a company called SaaStar, and the content they produce around sales is phenomenal. And when I was building my first sales team, this was the key advice. I think he was an ex-VP of sales for is it DocuSign or Adobe, and he said when you're building your first sales team, always hire two, not one. I know you may be thinking as well, okay, if I hire two, that's double the expense. But if you hire two people and they both perform, that's two people now in your business that is going to be going out to market, generating customers and meetings for you, right? This is how you truly get leverage. And here's an example here of the sales team I built in my last role. We used to meet every Monday. We would set the projections for the week. We'd review the past week to see how the performance was. Are we hitting our KPIs? When you can set that structure in place, this is when you can actually go back to really being a CEO, where you get to look at your business from a holistic standpoint, that you're not just deeply entrenched in the sales. So very quickly, the 5-step process I use to build sales teams, and you can steal as well. And I'll go through this very quick. Create a job description, set the hiring criteria. Here's another thing, right? Based on your vertical, I would post a job on a website that's related to your industry. Why? So if someone has an insight into the industry that you're in, it's going to take them generally less time to ramp, meaning it's going to take them less time to become proficient in speaking your language, because every industry is different. No, I'm not saying it's a hard rule, but if you want to move fast, I would generally, I'd favor people who have experience in the industry I'm hiring in. Step 3, you shortlist it to 10. Step 4, you interview them, and step 5, hire 2. And I know some people will probably overlook this part, but you can be letting yourself in for a world of pain if you don't do this, right? So heed that advice. And here's the last thing: how to assess a great salesperson. So I was very fortunate in my career to work with some amazing VPs of sales at Twitter, at Time Doctor, and one of the schemas that was given to me of how to actually assess someone is the graph you see right in front of you. And for me, I look at 4 areas when I'm trying to hire a salesperson. 1, are they goal orientated? This will generally tell me, will they be able to push through when times get tough, because it will get tough. 3, are they emotionally resilient? 4, will they be a cultural fit? And then the second one, skill set. I test this on the call as well, just to see what they'd be like. You need to get them on a call to see if they'll be a good fit for your team. So a quick recap. We went through the 3 beliefs holding you back from selling more, the number 1 reason why certain companies are able to scale to 7 figures and some are not, how to close more deals faster with the 3-day framework, your sales score, why leverage matters in sales, and how you can use it to scale. Again, here's the 4-step AMPS sales process. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you're welcome to do so. I'm telling you, if you just look at this area every day, you will then begin to understand why certain elements of your sales process aren't working. Okay, sales are down. Why are sales are down? Okay, I'm not having any conversations. I'm not getting leads. Okay, I'm getting leads, but they're not closing. Why are they not closing? Is there something wrong with my presentation? And then you can iterate over time. Now, I know I covered a lot in a relatively short space of time. So is anyone feeling like this? I hope not. Is anyone thinking this? Is it possible to earn this power? I hope there's some Star Wars fans who are watching. If there isn't, then this will not resonate. But yes, so starting April 8th, I am launching a sales accelerator where I'm going to be working with founders to build the sales system that I've used, again, at companies like Twitter, Time Doctor, and LifeFlow to generate 700 meetings and $2 million in revenue. That's starting April 8th. This will include quite an intensive first 6 weeks where I will work with founders to set up their sales infrastructure. This includes their sales CRM to map out their sales process, as well as helping create those lists to be able to effectively target your target demographic, as well as creating your sales script. So I know this from experience working with founders, this is an area where no one has actually showed them. So it's one thing to show, but to actually create scripts. The other thing is to get feedback on how they're performing. So that's what I'll work with founders over week 3 and week 4. And then week 5 is all about, okay, how do we bring someone over the line? How do we actually negotiate and close? And in B2B sales, like this, one of the main reasons why I'm doing this workshop, I think there's a lot of really bad advice out there in terms of sales, particularly if you go on YouTube. If you're in B2B sales, there isn't going to be any of these like one call closes. It doesn't work like that, particularly if there's multiple decision makers. You're dealing with highly sophisticated C-suite executives, right? They're not going to make a quick judgment decision. They're going to be wanting to pull other people, as Naomi specified in her question as well. There's going to be other people involved in the decision-making process. So how the hell do you manage and negotiate around that? So that's what I'll go through in week 5. And then in week 6, I'll go through the playbook that I use to scale sales. And this is more so driven with building a team. As well as this, so this is going to be a 12-month coaching program. The reason it's 12 months, B2B sales takes time. It does not happen overnight. So it's one thing, I can go through a 6-week program with you, but over time, what I found by working with founders who perform the best is they get consistent feedback on their calls as to why deals aren't closing, what they need to change to make sure deals are closing, how can they optimize what they're doing so that when they're speaking to their prospects, they're taking advantage of those opportunities. And to be able to do that, if sales isn't your background, you need coaching to be able to improve in that area. As well as that, these are all the bonuses I'm going to throw in. All my experience of, I guess, working with the likes of Twitter and Time Doctor. I'll go through all the presentations that I've used with these companies to, 1, shorten sales cycles, and 2, of how to get meetings. It's funny, I think the common theme that I've been hearing from founders lately, one of their big challenges is getting meetings. And a lot of that comes down to how you structure your outreach. So this is what I'll be working with whoever comes on board in the program in the next few weeks. I'll go through the demo decks, as I mentioned as well, that companies like Time Doctor use to generate $20 million in revenue. The exact sales scripts, I'll help you personalize those as well, so it's relevant to what you're selling. I'll give you the follow-up sequence that turned a closed last deal to closed one 42K annual recurring revenue deal. This stuff, more than anything, I'm super excited to help and teach people that, because another trend I see is when people lose a deal to their competitors, they just give up. And there is nuanced and sophisticated ways to try to open up those closed loss deals again. So until someone says they've signed a contract with another company, you still have a chance. And there's a way of doing it without coming across salesy as well, by the way. I'll go through objection handling with you as well as the sales hiring templates I've used. So that is what I'm going to be giving. Generally, how I've worked, like mostly the work I do is working with B2B businesses. I work with CEOs and sales teams, and generally how I price is kind of an upfront setup fee, as well as kind of a 3 to 6 month engagement. But I'm conscious there's probably startup founders who are on this call, and I genuinely want to help as many of them as possible, specifically 1,000. That's my goal, that's my mission, to help 1,000 founders get better at sales. So what I'm going to do, I've never done this before, we'll see how it works. This will be an investment of $375 a month, where I will work with you to build your sales infrastructure. I'll help you launch your sales campaigns, and I'll help you close deals on your calls. So again, this is the first time I'm doing this. I don't know will I do it again. And I'm going to add a caveat here as well. It isn't easy. It takes work and pig-headed discipline. And I would say specifically, if you're in the B2B space, if someone's trying to say, you know, I can help you, I don't know, scale to 10 million, I can help you get customers in a week, it doesn't happen. It's nonsense. I've seen the movie before. I've done the hours. I've made the calls. I've shortened sales cycles. I've increased win rates, and it takes time, particularly if you're doing it for the first time. So my invitation to you is, if this is something you want to learn more about, scan the QR code in front of you. As I said, I'm going to close this on April 5th. I'm looking to just work with 5 founders. And when you scan that QR code, you'll just be given a link to my calendar. I'll be completely transparent. If I think I can help you, I will try. If I think I can't help you, I will try to find someone else in my network who maybe could. And yeah, we'll go from there. So I have a hard stop in 10 minutes. I need to jump on another call. But given the time we have left, if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat now, and I will address them. Let me have a look. Okay, I just see your comment, Lukasz. Just let you know I've never heard of Medich. Yes. There's another framework you can consider as well. This would depend on your own sales cycle. So there's 2 ones, right? One is called BANT. This is probably one of the most famous sales frameworks that's been created in terms of qualifying potential prospects. It stands for budget. When you're on a call, you want to try to get the budget. A is for the authority figure. N is need, to figure out the need. Do they really have a need for your solution? And T is time, the timeline. So you can figure out how long will the deal take to close. That's a good one to start with, BANT. But generally in complex sales, when I'm talking about complex sales, I'm talking about if you're trying to sell to enterprise or mid-market, like companies that have like 500 employees plus, that's where you need to evolve to a framework like Medich, because you're going to have multiple decision makers involved. You know, as I said earlier, if you're dealing with, say, a CTO or head of technology, they're not just going to be able to sign off on the deal. They're going to want to pull someone else in. CEO is going to have to sign off on it. Legal is going to have to sign off on it. Procurement might need to sign off on it. So you need to get all that information so you can understand your prospect's buying process. And that's the key thing. I think one thing that really helped me when I was going through this and learning all of this stuff is to really adopt a curious mindset. You're generally you're trying to figure out how this organization operates, and when you come from that place, this notion of feeling salesy or being too timid to ask a question will go out the window. Okay, guys, if there's no more questions, I'm going to jump. If you want the recording of this workshop as well, please let me know and I will send it to you. So I think some people probably have me on LinkedIn or email. Probably the easiest way to get me out is to hit me up on LinkedIn, and I can send this over to you if needs be. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you guys got value from this, and yeah, happy selling. Take care.